So good evening, everyone. We are so excited to have you here for tonight's event. I am Castel Sweet. I'm the director for the Center for Community Engagement here at the University of Mississippi. As part of our work at the University of Mississippi in the center is working with community-led initiatives such as Osprey that really work to strengthen our local communities. So by the end of the night, you'll understand why we jumped on this opportunity to work with Osprey. So over the last few months, we've really got to know kind of the work in their mission, and we really believe in the stuff that they're trying to do of helping to support the growth and development of youth in our communities. And so over lunch today, I got a sneak peek of some of the conversations that they're gonna talk about tonight, and I will tell you, you are in for a treat. So with that, I'm going to introduce Taylor Sledge and the amazing panelists that's going to talk to you and learn more about the work that they are doing.
All right, good evening. How y'all doing? I'm Taylor Sledge. We're so glad that y'all are here tonight for the kickoff of Osprey. Before we do anything, we're going to church this up a little bit. Everybody stand up and greet the person nearby you, somebody you don't know. Who's been to church before? All right, y'all know each other now. Sit down. The Baptists are in the back. Okay, so in the interest of time, we're going to be here until 8:30. We will have a Q&A at the end. Now I'm looking at my watch. Who knows what it means when a preacher puts his watch on the podium? Nothing. Nothing. Okay, so 20 years ago, this month, August of 2003, I came into this very room for freshman convocation led by Sparky Reardon. And a group of 18-year-olds came in here and sat down, and as soon as we got quiet, Sparky Reardon came behind this podium and said, "Welcome to freshman convocation. I don't care what they say about y'all, y'all still smell like beer." And that was the beginning of my experience at Ole Miss. I don't know if when you came in from the outside, you noticed the Gertrude C. Ford statue. It's a huge bronze statue of Gertrude C. Ford with an outstretched hand. I had spent the summer wearing a pair of flip-flops. And when I left freshman convocation and I started to walk, my flip-flop broke. And so I took them both off and put them in Gertrude's hand. And I walked back to my dorm with no shoes on. Now, at the same time, that same semester, in that same month, 20 years ago, Mark Zuckerberg and Eduardo Saverin were writing an algorithm on the window at Kirkland Dormitory at Harvard University. And later that fall, Facebook would be rolled out, and in the spring, we'd have it here at Ole Miss. And I stand before you today telling you that this group of people that you're going to see tonight has had exactly enough time, 20 years, to finish school, begin a life, start a family, and find themselves uniquely concerned about the future. And that's why we're here right now. So if you wouldn't mind, please enjoy a video about Osprey.
I'm living my best life. Yeah, yeah, living my best life. my best life. Yeah, living my best life. I've been living my best life.
Welcome our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause, please.
Thank y'all so much for coming.
We have assigned seats.
You
so
do.
we're all-
Yeah, I was told to sit right here.
All right, so let me make some introductions. To my left, right here, I have my beautiful wife, Dr. Catherine Sledge. Let's give a round of applause after each one of these. We've got Secret Service expert here, David Polson. We've got CEO of Mississippi's most prominent tech company, C-Spire, Hugh Meena. We've got noted psychiatrist, Dr. Adriana Stacey. We have well-known local woodworker, Ben Napier. And then we also have our favorite creative, Miss Erin Napier. So we thank y'all for joining us tonight. We want this to be a conversation, and we feel like the best place for that to start is with Erin. And so, Erin, I wanted to ask you, if you would mind, please tell us kind of what you feel like we need to know generally about Osprey.
Okay, Osprey is a grassroots initiative where elementary age kids and their families foster an environment so that they can have social lives without social media through high school graduation. And I think our age group, those of us, I graduated high school in 2003, Ben was 2002. You guys were?
03.
03. So 20 years ago is about when...
01.
Yeah. We are the original Osprey kids. We waited until high school graduation to get social media. And we have a unique perspective because we grew up in a low-tech time where we had a home computer and we played, there was like a trivia game that came on every computer. That's everything I can remember about using it. And then we got to college and we got social media, and it was very primitive. It was literally a digital photo album where other people could see it, and the other people would be like 50 people maybe who you knew because you went to high school together. And it's something different now. It has mutated and become something very different than the innocent, primitive thing that it was in the beginning. And I think we're finding tons of families who have kids in elementary school, parents who are about our age.
Or babies.
Or babies. I have a 2-year-old, and people think, what do you know about it? You're not in the trenches yet. That's the point. There are a lot of us who have little ones who are thinking about the future now. And what can we do about it to build community now while they're little so that we don't face such a difficult battle when they're older? And I think you guys would be really surprised about who all is behind this movement. There are so many millions of us who feel this way. You're not weird because you want this for your kids. I have a video that a friend of mine just texted me tonight. She wanted me to share it with y'all as a little encouragement. If we can hit play on that.
Hi, everybody. I am Drew, and I am Erin Napier's friend. I'm so proud to say that. And so proud of everything that she is trying to accomplish here with this event and ongoing. I fully support this. We've talked in depthly about it. This is, a parent issue. This is a humanity issue to make sure that we figure out how to navigate this new world that we live in, enveloped and encompassed in social media. I never thought that growing up sort of in front of everyone, it seemed like such a unique experience at the time, but it's everybody's reality now. And we have to figure out how we do this in a way that feels regulated and safe and thoughtful and helps us figure out how to live a life through these modern times. So I'm there with everybody in spirit. And thank you, Erin, again, for taking this on. I'm right there with you, and I can't wait to continue the work with you. Thanks for having me for a minute here today. Okay, bye.
Gertie from ET, everybody.
I was about to say, wasn't she in E.T.?
Yeah, she was
She was
in
in
ET.
ET.
I remember her.
But what she said there about, she thought she had a unique experience growing up in front of everyone, and now that's what everyone is doing.
Yes. So, thank you guys so much for caring enough to come here on a weeknight. You all have to be at work in the morning. I really appreciate it. It's giving us confidence sitting on this stage knowing that there's a lot of us that feel this way. Thank y'all.
Absolutely. My wife, Dr. Catherine Sledge, I'll probably refer to her as Dr. Sledge throughout the night.
He will if he knows what's good for
That's
him.
right. I always say it's the only way there was going to be a Dr. Sledge is if I married a woman and she changed her name. But Catherine is essentially the operational end of Osprey, and I think it's important that we understand, kind of what are kind of the bones of how this is going to function.
Yeah, so as Erin said, this is grassroots. So all of y'all are our people. We're so happy that you're here, and y'all are here because you are interested and engaged in being intentional with what's going on with your kids or grandkids or nieces and nephews or whoever it may be that you're thinking about. When you take a moment in your mind, I know there's a child in your life that you're thinking about, and that's why you're here. And so what Osprey is, it's not some big organization that's kind of coming down and telling you what to do. All of you are the ones who go and make it happen, because community and being close with and engaged with those around you in your real face-to-face life is what we're trying to encourage and what we're trying to help bring up these kids to do. And so reaching out to that friend who you've already had the conversation with, maybe they're sitting next to you right now, and saying, hey, let's go get coffee, let's go on a walk, let's chat about how we can form our nest. And if you're here, you've probably maybe read a little bit on the website or some of the things that Erin has shared about our nests. And those are the local groups that you can go home and form that are really just support groups and groups for you to talk with one another about how we can create this safe community for our kids where they're engaging face to face. And then as they grow and are faced with different challenges that come when maybe there's a coach at their school that wants to use a social media platform for communication, and you have to kind of stand up and maybe say, hey, what's a different way that we could do that? And just support one another and continue through that throughout their school years.
Absolutely. And also, it's important to note, and Erin, I'd like for you to speak to this. This is not an anti-platform. Okay, that is not the message that's coming here. We're not anti-smartphone, anti-social media. We've got the tech business right here on stage. So, Erin, if you would speak just a little bit to what does it mean to be talking about we're putting boundaries around these situations, but we're also saying we're still moving into the future and we still need to have the technology.
So, when my babies were born, Mallory, my best friend, is sitting in the front row. She's really more like my sister, but she was the first one of us to have a child. And Lucy is in the front row with her. She's now the oldest of our group of our nest.
Of the nest.
So us, the Raspberries, the Nowells, and the Trusts, just a group of friends. We all live in the same neighborhood. We said when our kids were born, hey, I don't want my kids to struggle with depression and anxiety that we're hearing all this in the news about what's happening with teenagers and social media. Why don't we just decide right now, while they're babies, let's just don't expose them to it. Deal? And we had like a handshake agreement via group text message, and we're like, yeah, man, no way, we're not doing that.
This is something
very
that,
informal.
That, what you're saying, like, we're not anti, and we've talked with Hugh about this. He, described it as like the, waiting to drink at, like used to. When Hugh, when he graduated high school in 2001, he, back then, it not drinking and driving was not as big of a deal. That way it was new. But like in that situation, that's something that I think we can all agree on. That's just bad. You know what I mean? That's just bad. But with this, with cell phones and with social media, like Erin and I owe our career to social media. We reconnected with the Sledges because of social media. You're all here.
Because I posted about it on social media.
So
it
we
is an
see
amazing
the irony.
tool.
It's an unbelievable tool. It's a great time we
A
live in.
powerful tool. But Dr. Stacey gave us the most perfect analogy this afternoon. You know what else is a great tool when you have a horrible headache? Ibuprofen.
Are you stealing her? You're going to steal her?
This is the only thing I'm going to steal from you. You can have the rest of it. I can have it. It's yours. Thank you. This is an analogy that was totally on my level. When I have a headache, I'm going to take an adult dose of ibuprofen. And when my baby is teething, I give her an infant dose of ibuprofen. We can all enjoy technology in amounts and ways that are appropriate for us and our ages. And for our kids, that dosage is incredibly small.
Emmett just clapped for you on that one.
Thank you. Thank you, baby. You know how much that ibuprofen helps with the teething. We have a precious little baby up here in the front. Yes, so there is a place for technology, and I think it's when we're older that we should have full access to the whole world and what social media can do for your business and for rekindling old friendships or for the future. Like, this is the future, and we know that, and we're not ignorant about that. But what we do now when our children are little, the culture that we build in our homes, will dictate their relationship with technology and hopefully make it a healthy one. And I'm really excited that we have everyone here to discuss. Dr. Stacey sees the worst of what can happen with technology.
One thing that we heard a lot on social media is people would say, who makes them experts, and who, there are a lot. This is a very hot topic, and some people are really in favor of letting their kids have social media, and that's fine. We are not against that. We don't want our kids to have it. That's it, until they're ready. And so a lot of people, or what makes them experts? Who said that they don't even have teenagers? And so we have experts.
We were Osprey kids, actually, and I think that makes us experts. We waited till high school graduation.
I think it's important that we give Ben credit for naming this
Thank you.
enterprise.
It was very
It was
important to him.
impressive. And
This is literally the only thing that I have given to the group.
I'll actually say that people have already been like, I'm forming another organization going to call it Eagle or Falcon.
I don't know.
It sounds pretty good.
Falcon does sound pretty good.
But Ben came up with old school parents raising engaged youth. All the other 90s acrostics, right? MAD, DARE. So,
Sad.
isn't that right?
Yeah,
We wanted to be very 90s about it. We wanted Osprey to feel set apart in a way that feels like summer camp. Not set apart in a way that feels like you're the weird one. You're the only one who doesn't have it. That is the thing that hurts, and it cuts so deep for a child to hear, you're the only one. What if we build huge communities of kids who don't have it, and it becomes summer camp? They are set apart in a way that is back to the basics of learning and engaging, and you're building campfires, you're going fishing, you're learning archery, you're sleeping in a cabin without air conditioning, that sort of experience versus the kind that cuts deep. That is what we're after with Osprey and the way it should feel in these nests that we build.
another analogy that we've talked about over the last while is smoking. If you think about just culturally, think about how social media has impacted us up until this point as it's developed. And if you think about smoking, and back in, I guess would that have been early 1900s, it was, everyone did it in mid-1900s.
Medicinal even.
It's good for your health.
It was,
Every doctor recommended menthol.
right. So many people smoked. Well, then research began to come out that said, this is not good for you. Actually, this can kill you.
And then they showed us the black lungs.
The black lung, the blood. Did you remember the black lung? It traveled around. I don't know if it was the same lung or multiple lungs, but I saw the black lung, and here I am at almost 40 talking about it today. So,
And I've never smoked, and I will never.
that's right.
Scared the black lung.
Yes, but there was that period of time in between for probably about 20 years when people were sounding the alarm, but nobody wanted to hear it because they were addicted. It was biological and physiological. And then also just culturally, it was cool. And then finally, it turned around. It took a long time. And I think that we're in the middle. We're in that time of.
We're about to see the black lung.
We're about to see we're trying to figure out what the black lung could be to show, but it's time for the tide to start turning. And I'm grateful we have Ben and Erin who have a voice to sound the alarm.
Literally, we just have a lot of people listening to what we're talking about, and it's usually home design or woodworking, but this is something that is way more important to us, honestly, is the future of our kids' mental health. And I think that the only way we're going to do it is community. But
Well, so this entire concept started with a conversation, and being able to tell a good story is the only way that people move. So my question is, Catherine, would you and Erin, and Erin, maybe you could speak to the vision a little bit. Would y'all talk a little bit more about the concrete, actionable, like what does it look like when people, maybe just in a small piece, when they take action? How do they do that with Osprey? How do they mobilize a little bit? And then what do you think would be a beautiful picture of the future, Erin, of how it has gotten organized and people have made a commitment?
Can I interject?
You can.
here?
You certainly
you can say things.
I know I'm
too.
supposed to just support Erin here, but
No, I want you to talk.
I have something. So there were a couple teachers, and then several parents were like, if there's anything I can do, let me know. Well, we don't need help with it. You need to do it. So now.
You are Osprey. You're here right now. All you have to do is right now, you can take a minute. If y'all want to take a minute right now and text a group of your friends. What?
Rebecca Lowe's nest.
Rebecca Lowe has a nest. My friend Rebecca from college, she was basically one of my roommates. She's here. They've started a nest. All it is you have a group of your friends and you rely on each other. You start making those hard decisions together. Lucy is 10. We have two 10-year-olds, almost 10. We have some 10-year-olds happening in the group, and they are making those decisions now. And as a group, we're like, okay, team, what are we going to do? And as a group, it is so much easier if we are like, okay, team, we are going to get the 10-year-olds a flip phone. And that's what we're going to do. And we're like, okay, that's what when the kids turn 10, they get a flip phone or they get a watch that can just call us or text us. And that's it. We have to make decisions together, I think, to feel good about it, to know our kids have community, they're backed up, they have friends they can call. And it's going to be really, really exciting when they get access to a phone. They can just call their friends. Do you remember, like, 5th grade, having phone calls with your best friends about, I'm sure it was really lame things, but it felt so important.
It felt like a huge deal.
It felt very important to have your own private phone call. And we don't have landlines anymore, so our kids deserve that amount of communication with their friends. We're not anti-technology, but I think it's going to be exciting to see, as a group, how we all adapt together. Lucy, when you get your driver's license, we're going to talk about that next upgrade. We'll have a new plan then. Yeah, you're a long way from driving. You're still our baby. So that's how we are implementing our nest. There's 4 families. How many kids is it between us all? I should just give you a microphone to 12? So that's 12 kids. And then when school starts, we hope to add a whole lot more. Just other kids that our friends become friends with say, hey, y'all want to be a part of Osprey? All right. The plan is flip phones when they're 10. Welcome to the club.
But y'all are in it. Y'all are starting.
Y'all are in it.
Yeah.
Your kids are older.
So there's a guide on the site, right, and a roadmap to being able to line that out. Correct, Dr. Sledge?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think this is a good time you're talking about the children getting the phone for the first time. And, this conversation is about collaborating so that we can get in the future. Hugh, I think it'd be a great time for you to weigh in and talk a little bit about maybe some things that you've got going on at C-Spire and where you kind of see your role is in this discussion.
So I appreciate you mentioning our Connect and Protect program. It fits right in. First thing, let me say, is I do not believe kids should be technophiles and people who are just totally tied to technology. I also think it's even, I don't know about dangerous, but it's not productive long-term to be Luddites. That we don't want them there either. But we want our kids to be kids. Quite frankly, I'm glad I didn't have an electronic device when I was young and I could run outside and play all over Clarksdale and Coleman County. That was a really good thing. And I don't know, who knows, I might have been just mesmerized by the screen all the time. So it was a good thing. But also, we have learned in our business how important connectivity is for the reason you just mentioned, to make those personal phone calls and to bridge the distance between time and space. That's really kind of what we do in our industry. Bridge the divide between lack of knowledge and more knowledge. Those are just things that we do. We don't have to go to the library to get information. We don't have to go to the yellow pages to find things that we want to purchase. So there are a lot of good things in technology, but just about like everything else, every age appropriateness is so important. And that's what we're doing in our recently announced Connect and Protect program, where we are providing a wide variety of devices, age appropriate. It might be a smartwatch for the younger kids, and it might even be a full-on connected Apple iPhone for the older, teens and all. But there's phases in between where a kid might get a mom or dad's used iPhone, and we put in the proper protections to keep them from the harmful aspects of social media, keep them from being bullied in a cyber format and all. So there are a lot of things that can be done. Software drives just about every part of technology. No matter what it is, it's all about software. And about the only thing that can protect us against bad software, only thing in technology that can protect us against bad software is well-written, good software written by good people. Technology is just a thing. It's not good, it's not bad. It depends on how it's used and how it's developed by the people who are developing it, and certainly by the people who are using it.
Yeah.
Well said. And it's important to note that C Spire is really a big supporter of Osprey. So say thank you to C Spire right now.
Huge thank you to C
We're
Spire.
Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. And
Well, I'd be remiss. Part of our team that developed our Connect and Protect program is here tonight.
they're all the well-dressed people. I know.
Yeah, they're dressed way nicer.
They
than
look
all of us.
good.
And they
Yeah.
came in. There was a group out earlier, and they came in. Boy, they looked like a team coming in.
Where are
they
y'all?
were ready. Where's the C Spire team? They're in the
Somebody
back
wait, there
center.
they are.
Middle.
They were the ones
They're the
I
Baptists.
was calling them Baptists.
There's the ones.
Sorry,
We didn't
guys.
know.
Well, they've done a fantastic job of putting this program together, and we're excited about serving the market in an appropriate way.
It was interesting. We had a long conversation and talking about this. Erin and I, and Catherine was there, Taylor was there, but we were talking about, and it's the cool thing about the Connect and Protect is you can adjust it as they grow, like he was saying. So, like Erin and I were talking about, I just knocked my water over. When our girls are old enough, Erin and I both we like to drive cars. It's a thing for us.
To drive an old car and listen to the perfect song. It is like the most seminal teenage moment that you never forget. It was something I looked forward to for a year before I could drive a car by myself, was what playlist mix CD would I hit play on?
Yes.
Our kids want that experience, and they can have that, I think,
So when our
with a
girls,
program like Connect and Protect.
when our girls get to be, 10, 11, 12 years old and they get their first phone, we're probably not going to have that on there. We would want, call, text, and GPS. But then when they start driving, we want them to be able to listen to music. We want them, and then as they get older, we can add, in internet. And then, when they're 18, we can say, here's social media, here's how it works, look out for these things. And that's something we would educate them on as we go.
We know that we've got to identify boundaries with this, but there also has got to be a way forward,
Yes.
with the technology. And that's what Hugh has provided. So we've considered Hugh and Ashley mentors for a long time. They raised 3 boys. Catherine and I are raising 3 boys. And what it's like to raise boys is just a bunch of people that leg drop each other in your house. That's pretty much it.
That was happening today.
It was. We just opened the door.
right
and
down the street. There they were. They-
It sure is
It's a wrestling
quieter,
match.
quieter in our neighborhood since y'all moved out.
Oh, yes. You're welcome. Yes. That's personal, Hugh. Anyway, so, Ben, I wanted to ask you a question. you know, you're the dad of 2 little girls, and you know, you're putting elves in trees and wearing bracelets and
They're gnomes.
gnomes.
They're not
Sorry,
elves.
they're not elves.
Gosh.
Forgive my nomenclature.
We're trying
God, that
to
was a horrible
create a
dad
magical
joke. That was
childhood
really
experience.
awful.
For me, having these 2 girls, I grew up in an all-boy household. I have 3 brothers, and I had never been around little girls. You know, we were, like they were saying, like little boys. It's a lot of fighting and wrestling, and so, you know, people don't like bringing their little girls
Tread
around them.
lightly.
And
It's an emotional experience. Girls
Yes.
get a little emotional.
the girls are more
They're a
emotional.
little sensitive.
They're a little more sensitive. What else?
are,
And the father becomes a little more emotional and a little more sensitive.
we are a little moody.
I cry daily.
It just, I don't know, there's a vulnerability to girls. We're vulnerable to criticism in a way that I think boys are maybe not. They're a little tougher. They can handle criticism. They're used to it from sports, probably, but in a way that I think if I had had social media when I was a sensitive, musical, artistic teenager, and someone had criticized me playing music or some art that I had made and shared, it would have changed me. Incrementally, every cut would have left a permanent scar that would change maybe who I became ultimately. Whereas the way I grew up without social media, I had my best friends, my parents, their input. They're like, I love that you play music. Keep doing it. And okay. Or I love that you make art. Keep doing it. And that was the encouragement that I needed. A gentle, if there was criticism, it was gentle and from someone that I loved. And that is not the social media experience. And our kids are not mentally developed enough. I get plenty of ugly comments on my social media now. People have opinions about everything. But I'm an adult, and I know that you could be the most delicious, juicy, ripe peach in the world, but there are still going to be people who hate peaches. And I'm fine
my
with
friends.
that. I am so fine with that. In 9th grade, 8th grade, absolutely would not have been okay with that. It would have changed who I became.
And part of this is, so Taylor, you grew up a boy, and so you understand.
I did.
And you grew up. You grew
y'all
up.
getting a
You
little
remember that
personal
time you
here.
were
I
a
don't-
Two
boy?
boys. There were 2 boys in your family.
additional
Okay, so
comment.
no sisters. So you know, you weren't growing up around little girls, and now you're raising little boys. It's a very, very so different experience. And y'all have tried to get the girls to be interested in cars or interested in cutting down trees, and they're just not. They are not. I've tried so hard.
But they sometimes love to watch the good, the bad, and the ugly with you, and I think that is
That is a huge win. It's a huge win. But it's that there is this fear for me because I feel like I am in, you know, uncharted waters for a Napier man, that I am just terrified that I'm going to get it wrong. And this feels like something that we can say, you know, okay, this is something that we're going to try to control a little bit. And then we're gonna learn how to do it.
And I would add too, one thing that we all feel really strongly about is Taylor mentioned, we're not against anything. It's not that we're against, it's about timing, but also it's about what we're for. And think about, I mean, most of you probably have a smartphone sitting in your pocket, and we were talking about, mine sends me a notification every Sunday morning, yours probably does too, about your screen time for this week. And it was up or it was down. Or
Shameful.
It's shameful.
It is shameful.
But if you think about, okay, let's say you've got a child who is, you know, less able than an adult to really regulate and kind of discipline themselves for how long they need to be spending on that device. Okay, let's say it's 4 hours a day, which a lot of them spend a lot more than that. What could they be doing in those 4 hours? They could be
Mastering.
Yes.
Okay, we have a friend whose son just graduated from high school. They were Osprey kids before there was a name for it. They didn't have social media. This boy is about to start his freshman year at Auburn University, and he is a pilot. He has a pilot's license and does solo flights. He's a champion archer. He's a woodworker. Though that's what he did with that time that kids his age spent playing video games or on social media. He spent that time learning how to do something. And I know a couple of teenage girls who one of them is not a teenager anymore. She just finished college and she's this incredibly accomplished ballerina. She has traveled the world. She lived in Philadelphia and New York where she learned under professional ballerinas. And that's what she did with her time instead of using social media. It's what can our kids achieve when they're not distracted?
They also
That's what
learn how
we're
to-
in favor of.
They also learn how to talk to each other.
And they can talk. These are young people who can talk to you. And as people who own multiple companies, we are hiring a lot of people who are coming out of college right now who find it incredibly difficult to communicate. And it is a hugely important part of their job to communicate with these people who travel across the world to come to Laurel, Mississippi to see the hometown. And if we don't have bright young people who can engage in conversation and have something to say about Laurel when these people get here, then we all look bad. And also, it's sad. It's really sad to see how difficult conversation is becoming for young people who just have been addicted. And I don't think it's necessarily their fault that they got addicted. Our brains were designed to learn things quickly. And Dr. Stacey's going to tell you so many facts that are unbelievable.
Yes.
About
So to summarize, you're creating with Osprey sort of a social boundary for parents that can all be on the same page, which in turn creates a social opportunity for kids who come from households that are all on the same page.
Social lives without social media. That's what we're after. And I think if we have groups, that's the way. That's the way forward.
Absolutely. Okay, so shifting gears, we want to talk to Dr. Stacey. And we're so glad to have her with us. She's a psychiatrist, expert on mental health, and she's going to kind of take this in a direction of health. So, Dr. Stacey, first of all, tell us just a little bit about kind of your background and just a little bit about, kind of your connection to this technology discussion.
Sure, thank you. This is not the same outfit as that picture.
I don't know.
Kind of looks like this is my only thing. They saw me earlier, I had a different outfit on. Okay, so I'm Adriana Stacey. I'm a psychiatrist, and before I was a psychiatrist, I didn't know what that was. So real quick, I went to medical school, and then I did 4 additional years of training specifically in mental health. And so I see kids, I always say from 5 to 85. So I see, it's sort of like your general practitioner of psychiatry. So I see people of all ages. Now, the majority of my practice is kids and teenagers just because that's kind of the way it's turned out. But I'll tell you real quick, I've been in this arena for 10 years, and so I'm so excited that Erin and Ben are bringing light to this because I've had boots on the ground in this for a really long time. And I'll tell you real quick how that started. So I have 4 children. My oldest is 17. I have twins, don't recommend it, that are 13. And I have a 10-year-old son. And when my twins were 3, you have to sort of transport yourself back to 10 years ago when little kids didn't all have a tablet. Like that wasn't a normal thing then. And we were taking a 15-hour road trip, and I was at Target buying like sunscreen and stuff, and I saw this big display for iPad minis, and they were on sale, and I thought, ooh, that is going to be a good trip. I'm going to buy 2 of these things, and I'm going to put all these educational apps on there, and they're going to be quiet because our youngest was a baby, and I thought this is going to be great. It was great. They didn't even talk to us. Nothing. I mean, it was like we had to make them get out of the car when we stopped. So then when we get to Florida, we took them away, right, because we're at the beach, and then it was like Satan was there in the person. I mean, they just lost their minds. And my husband's a physician as well, and we looked at each other at that moment, and we said, no, like we just can't. So I tell that story because I had that luxury to see that firsthand a long time ago, and I knew at that moment because of my training that we couldn't go down that road because for them, like it is for millions of kids, it was going to be a problem for them. And so our oldest was 7 at the time, and so we've made that decision pretty early on. Pretty soon around that time is when I started to see a change in the patients that I was seeing in my office. So I started seeing more and more kids come in that had, say, no family history or no risk factors for depression and anxiety. And so that really got me into researching the effects of screens and social media and sort of how to help kids both on the prevention side of things and also treating this issue when kids would come in and say, you know, I'm so depressed or I'm so anxious, or a lot of what we see is impulsivity and conduct problems, and we call it induced ADHD from these devices. And so normally when I give one of these talks, it's about 90 minutes, and so I'm real pressured to give y'all all the information in like...
Yeah, let's keep it below that.
Yeah. So I won't make y'all sit here for 90 minutes. But
I would sit here for 90 minutes.
Thank you, Ben. So I have some slides, and I have to look at them because I can't remember which ones I have.
Wow.
So I wanted to start with this. I have my notes here. So this is from the CDC. So this is the average kid, and this is entertainment media time, not time for school, like what they spend on a device for school. 8 to 10-year-olds, 6 hours a day. 11 to 14-year-olds, 9 hours a day. And 15 to 18-year-olds, 7.5 hours a day. Now, in my clinic, it's higher than that usually when I have kids look at their screen time. But if you add that up from 8 years old to 18, that's 22,448 hours, which is 935 days staring at a screen. 935 days. So I don't know what y'all think about that, but that's a lot of days. And so, like we were saying, think about all the things you did as a child with those 935 days. And that's what we want our kids to be doing. So 2 hours a day, that small amount is actually linked to an increase in suicidality and depression. The study was done in girls. We do see girls are a little bit more vulnerable to social media. Boys, it's a harder time with video games, and so we see some of the similar stuff there. More than only 2 hours a week is correlated with a reduction in life satisfaction, self-reported happiness, and actually self-esteem. So your self-esteem sort of forms in your teenage years. And so like Erin was saying, it's a lot harder for kids now because it's harder for them to develop that sense of self. The third point there is what we were saying, just the suffering from losing out on time. Time they would be becoming a ballerina or doing other things. I was talking at the reception with a friend of a friend about my girls and how they had decided to make like a garden in their rooms, and they put some coffee mug, I wonder where all my mugs were, and then I found them in their rooms, with some soil, with some seeds in there. And unbeknownst to me, they were growing morning glories, which if you've ever grown those, they take over the room. So we had a situation. But she said, God, I mean, that's amazing that they're teenagers and they do that. And I say, well, they don't have smartphones. So, you know, they have to sort of learn how to, same like we did. I mean, when you're bored, although when they come to me and they're bored, I say, well, there's sticks you can pick up outside. And then one huge study that was done about sleep. There's a lot of studies about sleep. But bedtime access to a device, so not even using it. So having a device in the room or just access to it significantly affects sleep. And so we see all kinds of issues with sleep, and there's a huge epidemic right now with kids in sleep. They're losing sleep. So if you're on your phone 10 hours a day and you're at school, 8 hours a day and you're playing sport, the time runs out. And so what goes away is their sleep. And that has all kinds of physical effects, which if you book me for the 90-minute talk, we can go into that a little bit more. And then a lot of kids are addicted to their smartphones, and they don't know how to admit that or what to do about it, and they have a really hard time sort of figuring out how to move past that addiction because, like we were saying, all their friends are addicted too. So when they get together in groups, what do? They stare at their phones while sitting next to each other, right? And a study came out recently about the teenage pregnancy rate was down, and we're like, that's great that the teenage pregnancy rate's down, but why is the teenage pregnancy rate down? Because they're not in the same room, right? So it's hard to get pregnant if you're not in the same room. So, there's two sides to every story, right?
I think I see what she's saying.
Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
We'll talk
one.
after the session, Ben.
Yeah. So what's considered social media? So this is surprising to a lot of parents, and the big one that always shocks people is Pinterest. So Pinterest is basically it's any computer-based technology that facilitates the sharing of ideas, thoughts, and information through virtual networks and communities. So that's even group texting. I mean, this is, we're not just picking on one app or another. What we're saying is these big platforms where kids can gain access to each other, people can gain access to the kids, and the world at large is social media. Okay, and our next slide is our sad brain. And so if we had the ability to do the black
Is this the black lung?
This is the black lung. So this is what
That's
we've
a
got for
horrible
now.
looking brain.
This is the sad brain. So
It's like a California raisin to me.
It looks kind of happy in that way.
yeah, it does kind of look like a raisin. Okay, so 2 hours a day of phone use leads to sleep problems, and that's pretty consistent across numerous studies. The bottom, let's see, that's the bottom right for you guys, is the study that I really like to bring to the forefront. So there's a big study that the NIH, which is the National Institute of Health, is doing called the ABCD study. And in this study, they're following groups of kids, I think it's 11,000 kids from around age 9 to 10 to 19 or 20. And they're looking at a lot of different things, not just technology, but a really scary data set came out, which was the kids that are social media users over about 2.5 hours a day, their brains have shrunk compared to the other groups. So it's actually shrinking their brain similar to like what alcohol does to an adult's brain. And we don't know if that's reversible. The brain grows till around age 25 a little bit.
So like alcoholism, they're seeing the brain
Shrink.
do a similar thing that
So
alcoholism
it makes sense because the way the brain, real quick, neurobiology, let's not be quick, I'll talk fast, but when you use certain pathways in your brain, they grow. So it's called, interestingly, arborization. So it's like a tree growing branches. And if you don't use those branches, then your brain does what's called pruning. So it prunes those branches away. And so these branches, this arborization, these neural pathways that are used for face-to-face communication and for things that, are the types of skills we use when we're not staring at a device, get pruned away. And so that's why we think the brain is smaller. And so there's now physical evidence that shows us that it's actually, causing problems in the brain. So if we could do the black lung, it would be a brain on
smaller
social
brain.
media and a brain, what was that? Here's your
This is your brain on
or whatever.
drugs.
Yeah. It would be like that. Yeah.
So it's smaller brain, but it's have there been any studies when you're older, or is it just kids?
Does the brain shrink when you're an adult and you overuse screens?
So your brain is fully developed around age 25. And
Okay.
so I don't know of any studies that have looked at that, like after age 25. And there is some, neuroplasticity, and the brain can grow and change a little bit after that, but it's not so extreme. So the periods of time where that pruning is so important is that 0 to 1 year. So that's when, when babies their heads are real big, and their brains are growing real fast, and, billions of neurons, and they're getting pruned. And then the teenage years. So adolescence and teenage years is the second sort of big surge of that pruning. And so that's why that time frame is so important for development. And so introducing these types of things during adolescence, that are easily addicted to is a lot more dangerous during that time frame than it is. Now, there are adults that are addicted to, all kinds of stuff. I mean, social media, phones, certain apps, whatever. I'm sure we've all can talk about a problem we've had with a certain app or technology. But
Marketplace.
that can be it. I mean, you
Facebook
can find
Marketplace.
some stuff on the
You
marketplace.
wouldn't be looking
can
at
find-
cars, would
Yeah.
you, Ben?
He would never. He would never do that.
Currently trying to find Mr. Sledge something.
And I'm sure you guys know this, but of course it's worth mentioning because why I see kids the most is for depression and anxiety. So we have I don't know if any of you read the Surgeon General's report, but he came out with a big warning recently about depression and anxiety when it comes to teenagers right now. And the suicide rates are at the highest they've ever been. Kids as young as 8 years old are taking their life. And it's really, there right now it's a correlation. So correlation's not causation. But if you come and sit in my office and talk to these kids, you'll see that it's a causation from my perspective. And so it really, there's fear of missing out, and there's all of this, issues with anxiety and the kids having to check their phones and knowing what's going on and, making sure they have their threads going long enough on all these things. And kids are hallucinating that their phone is going off in their pocket on a regular basis. And so there are a lot of mental health issues that we can tie back to device use. And I think there's another slide that's about younger kids. And so I do like to mention this because we talk a lot about teenagers, right? We talk a lot about social media and kids on Instagram or TikTok or whatever on social media. But I do want to just mention that there are a number of studies that link sort of learning problems, literacy issues to kids and devices. And so there's, from November of 2019, this is some big words, but I think you guys can handle it. So there's an association between increased screen-based media use and lower microstructural integrity of white matter tracts that support language and literacy in pre-K children. So basically what they're saying is that higher screen time at age 2 leads to poor communication and literacy skills at age 4. So that's kind of what they're looking at. There's some studies out of some other countries that show that screen use in young kids can actually increase your risk for autism diagnosis. We have kids that come in all the time. Their parents are like, this kid has ADHD. I know they do. They're climbing up the doorways and they're impulsive and all of this stuff. And I say, okay, let's talk about your screen time. Oh, just, 2 hours here and 2 hours here and 2 hours here. And I'm not blaming the parents or judging the parents. This is the norm, right? I mean, this is not like these parents are neglecting their kids this is just the normal, the way it is in our society. But what we don't realize is that's really affecting their brains and the way they can communicate. And so if we can get the kids off the screens, they don't have ADHD. So ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder. You're born with it. So it doesn't just develop when you're 9 and you've been on your device for 10 hours. And so I love to tell a quick story about this little patient I had, the cutest little kid. And his parents brought him in because he was really anxious, socially anxious, and they thought that he was really suffering and had ADHD, and so they brought him in for an evaluation, and we talked, and his screen time was through the roof. And so we talked about getting off the screens, and so his parents were, we'll do that. Let's kind of get off the tablet. And so he did that, and what they discovered is that he's an amazing artist, amazing, and he never would have known that. His parents never would have known that because this time was spent on Roblox or, Minecraft or whatever, which was fun for him. And the parents didn't know, any different. But now he creates this amazing art. And now he's got like this pathway where he wants to be an artist. And incidentally, his anxiety significantly improved as well. Not to mention his self-esteem improved. He does art shows. And so I think there's a lot of stuff we're seeing that we can tie back to screen use.
I'm seeing just in, as far as kids finding a thing that they're good at. Mm-hmm. Helen is 5. Lucy's her cousin and her best friend who's 10. And when she hangs out with Lucy and the big girls, Helen always feels she's slower. She's littler. She's, the big girls are doing this or the big girls
and they're
are doing
always really
that.
inclusive
They're
with her.
so inclusive of her. But then suddenly she's been taking ballet since she was 2. She's 5.5 now. And she, for some reason, why did ballet even come up? But Helen started to do ballet, and then all the big girls who had not taken ballet class were like, "Ooh, Helen, show us how you do that." And she had the confidence that she felt. She became 12 years old in that moment because it was a skill that she had that she felt, it gave her confidence.
Right.
When kids have a skill of some kind, it seems to give them confidence that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Right, and learning to discover who they are. And so those 900 days, they're not doing all of that, right? And so how does this happen? Well, when you use a device that is, you can scroll and you get a quick response from, your brain does what's called a dopamine dump. So it releases a lot of dopamine, which is a neurochemical in the brain, and interestingly, cocaine does the same thing. And so that's why it's so addictive, is because your brain gets addicted to this dopamine. And so it's seeking out that increased release of dopamine, which it can only get from that activity. But what's interesting to me is that the pathway that is responsible for dopamine, which is a reward pathway, right? So you do something good, you get a reward, your brain's giving you a reward, is also the same pathway that's responsible for motivation and empathy. And so if you talk to teachers that have worked with kids, pre-smartphone or technology addiction till today, they'll tell you that kids are less empathetic and less motivated than they used to be. And so that makes sense, right? And so we really want to make sure that our kids are empathetic to their peers, and we do raise empathetic kids, and that they're motivated. But when they spend too much time on these devices out of no fault of their own or ours as parents, it just happens. And we didn't know this, of course, when we first started handing these to them. And so it's something to be mindful of.
I would love, we chatted a little bit earlier today. I had told a story. So I'm a dentist, but I specialize in a procedure on infants and young children for tongue tie, which is when your tongue is tied too close to the bottom of your mouth and you can't feed well, or later there are speech issues that come up. And so I see a lot of 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds who may be referred to me by a speech therapist and or a pediatrician. The child is developmentally delayed when it comes to language. And probably about every 25th or 30th child who I see at that age will come in, and mom and dad's there, and they're just doing the best they can. They may have another couple of children in tow, but that little baby, that 2-year-old, has got a phone right in front of their face. And I try to engage with the child, and they're not really able to do that because they're so engrossed in the game or whatever it is. And pretty quickly I can tell by the physical exam there's no physical problem, and I realize this language delay is happening most likely because of the amount of screen time that the child's having. So I go over that with the parents. But one of the things, Dr. Stacey, that we were talking about at lunch was, not standing in judgment of the situation, because parents we're all managing a lot of things. We're trying the best we can, but how we can support one another, and this is what we hope our nests will do, in really just kind of standing strong as, okay, you know what, I am tired, but I'm going to engage. I'm going to get down on the floor. We're going to play. We're going to do all of these things. So speak to that a little bit.
Sure, and we can go to the next slide, but so Maya Angelou is one of my favorite writers of all time, and she said, when we know better, we do better, right? And so I think that's the important thing to remind ourselves as parents, is to not feel guilty about what's happened up to this moment, is to try to do better going forward. And so this is sort of a pathway to fix that, and to not feel like judgment or embarrassment or guilt about it, because until you know the difference, it's just like with smoking, there were people all the time that used to, smoke and drink when they were pregnant, because we didn't know any better. And now it's like you have the knowledge, and so you know to do better. So like Erin was saying, we want to get like-minded families together. And so I will tell you that, I have a 17-year-old, and she does not have a smartphone at this point. She does not have social media, and she is the only one. And so we would have loved to have a nest of people. Now, she does go to a lower tech school that doesn't allow phones in the classroom. Now, they use computers in there. It's not like they don't know how to, research things. There's just no personal devices, handheld devices in the classroom. So that helps. But if you were to have a whole group who decided at a young age, this is the pathway we're going to take, I'm telling you from experience, it makes everything so much easier. But what needs to go along with that, as we were talking about this earlier, you can't say, you can, but it's not effective to say to your kids, you're not going to have that because we said so, right? We all remember our parents saying that and think,
Forbidden fruit.
I will never say that to my kid. So you don't want, that's not the way to do it, but through education. And so educating your kids, and it's about changing your family culture. So up until today, your family culture might have been, when you get home from school, you get 2 hours on your device. And that's what it was until today. And then you as the parent are absolutely have that ability to change your mind today going forward, just like you would with anything else. You want to get a new job, you want to move, you want to buy a new car, you want to change your rules about who empties the dishwasher. You can do that, and I want parents to feel empowered to do that, and to not feel like they can't change the culture of their family. And so education is a huge piece. And so the one I think that's the best for education is a program called Screen Strong. And right now they have an amazing parent course that's out there that you can go on and you can do it with groups of people, or you can do it on your own. And there's a kid course that's coming out for 5th grade and up And fourth graders could do it. I have a fourth grader going in fifth grade, and he's looked at it as well. That's going to come out in September. And so those are great opportunities to really educate and talk to your kids about, we're not trying to be mean. We're not trying to keep this from you. This is why. So it's sort of like if you make the decision that you're not going to let your 12-year-old watch PG-13 movies, you explain that to them, right? So you say to them, this is why I'm not going to let you do that. And so
I look forward to the day it's like, if we watch a movie and Helen said, what is that? What is that? And it was a character who was smoking a cigarette. And we're like, what is what? They have smoke on a stick. What is that? I look forward to the day that that's how normal this discussion is about how unhealthy something is. And I was like, it's a cigarette. And she's like, what is that? It's, grown-ups used to do that. I couldn't exactly
It is
explain
kind of difficult to explain. I want to say, first of all, you see that nest back there?
I did see that.
See the nest?
Thank you for that nest
Yes, and we want to
graphic.
say,
we can't wait to fill it up.
great. We want to say thank you to Dr. Stacey. Let's
Yes,
have a round
thank
of
you
applause
so
for
much
Dr.
for bringing
Stacey.
so many
Outstanding.
unbelievable facts.
Thank you so much. She truly is an authority in this area. All right, David Polson. So David is with the Secret Service, and he is an expert in cybersecurity. He's been working in cybersecurity for many years. He's had lots and lots of experiences in law enforcement, and specifically this area. And we're really happy to have him on stage. He's going to share with us some of the more intense items and things that we're finding out about cybersecurity, especially for kids and families. So, David, tell us a little bit.
Thank you. So what I'm going to talk about is a little bit of the darker side, but it's not to scare anybody and to make you think that social media is a bad thing. I don't think social media is a bad thing. I think there's bad people that use social media, and they attack the most vulnerable users on social media, which most times it's children. It can be the elderly. But I have some slides that I can show you some stuff. So what we generally see is the biggest risk to children on social media comes with inappropriate content, their online privacy. A lot of times children don't know that they're given information. They're innocently using social media, but they're giving these people information that they can use against them. And once they get that information, now, I always use the analogy of, if you're a parent, would you leave your home unlocked and allow anybody to walk in your house, walk right by you, walk into your child's bedroom, shut the door and lock it and not let you in? No, you wouldn't. But if you have the internet and your child has free access to that internet, that's what you've done. Because when I was growing up, my parents, it was stranger danger. Be careful about this person, be careful about that person. That's still potentially a problem. But why would they do that and have the risk of somebody seeing them, the father seeing them getting called? They can talk to your child all day long on social media platforms, pretending to be a child their age or someone else, and groom them for a time period. Have that child leave the house and come meet them. That way they're not coming to your house. They're not looking, to snatch the child that way. They'll get the child to come and meet them. Because how hard is it to manipulate children? It's not very hard. And these people are good at it, and they don't stop. I mean, they'll use any means necessary to groom your child and have them leave and come meet them. Some other stuff we see too is the online enticement, which is what I'm talking about there, like that. Sexting and sextortion. Sextortion is one of the biggest things we're seeing right now, and probably one of the scariest. I think what people don't realize is what we see targeted mainly now are teenage boys. So there's a lot of cases all over the country, and don't think because, I live in North Mississippi, everything's fine here. That's not going to happen. It's already happened here. So most of the people doing this are from overseas. They don't live here, but they pretend to be a teenage female, and they message, the teenage male, and the conversation quickly turns inappropriate. Teenage boys are teenage boys. They send a picture that appears to be a teenage girl that he's talking to that's inappropriate. he asked, or she asked him to reciprocate and send a picture of himself. They do. Once they have that, they've got them now. What they're asking for is not so much now what we used to see with them saying, if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm going to expose you. They want money. So they tell this teenage kid, 14, 15-year-old kid, $1,000, or I'm sending this to every contact that you have. I'm sending it to your parents. Send it to all your friends. Now imagine being a 14 or 15-year-old boy and thinking that picture that you sent is going to be seen by your parents, all your friends at school. You're devastated. That's the end of the world. When you're 14 or 15, everything's the end of the world, right? So now what do? They get as much money as they can and they start sending it. But it's never going to be enough money. If they wanted to, okay, send me $1,000 and this will be over. Send me $1,000 tomorrow, send me another 1,000. Send me this. So a case that just happened in Michigan, the FBI actually made an arrest on this and actually extradited the guys and had them brought back to the United States. The kid sent them $300. They wanted more money. He says, I don't have any more money. This is all I got. They said, we're going to send it to everybody. He goes, I'm just going to kill myself then. The bad guy said, good, you should kill yourself. And he did. So I would say sextortion is one of the biggest things that we see
And
now.
the same thing happened to a family in Starkville.
Yeah, that happened in
Very
Mississippi
recently.
this past year.
That's what I'm saying. So it's not just a rare case here and there. It's rare when you see it on the news. It's rare that you may not hear it. You're missing it. It's happening all the time. There's some slides up here that I'll show you in a minute that shows just kind of how this has all exploded over the last couple of years, especially with COVID. When COVID hit, kids are getting more screen time. They're at home. You know, parents are still having to work, or they're doing online school. You can see right here, 98% of reported offenders were unknown to the child offline. 78% of the victims were female, 13% were male, and 9% of the reports the gender couldn't be determined. But you can see from there, 2019, this is the number of online enticement reports from 19,000 to the next year, 37,000, and it's about doubling every year now. It's only getting more because now there's money involved. Anytime there's money involved in greed, they are never going to stop. And it's not just children. Grown-ups are getting taken. Elderly people all ages, all walks of life. But in 2016, the cyber tip line received 262,573 reports of online enticement. That included sextortion. Between 2019 and 2021, the number of reports involving sextortion more than doubled. We believe that if you have a child that's on social media, in a matter of months, we're 100% sure your child is going to be approached. Somebody's going to try to entice them, try to lure them. And that's why, look, don't wait on the government to save your child. You know, you see how things go with that. Legislation is slow. We're here to help, and I'll help any way I can. Any of our agents will. Any law enforcement agency will. But you are the first line of defense. You know, you're going to have to step in and protect them. You're going to have to put the guardrails in place so that, you know, they're not going to be able to be exposed.
This is something we've talked about with David because Erin and I are in a unique situation in that, you know, I mean, we are on a TV show that opens a lot of doors for us. And so we had a situation with someone, and it very quickly went from the local community talking about it to one of David's childhood friends reached out to him and said, hey, you know, what do you think about this? And he was like, why are you just now telling me this? And so suddenly we had the Secret Service involved, and he's told us multiple times about other things, like people don't think to call, you know, they think like, oh, I'll go to the local law enforcement. They don't know how to handle this, but, you know, we have law enforcement agencies who are here to serve us.
With the technology expertise.
Absolutely. Us, the FBI, local law enforcement, reach out to anybody. Eventually it's going to get to us. But you're the first line of defense. You need to protect them first. And then, you know, call us and let us try to catch these guys. Some of the other things you'll see.
I was going to say there are resources here. I think a lot of people don't think like, yeah, I'll just call the Secret Service. You know?
Right. I mean, look.
Yeah.
Have you called the Secret Service
Have
on
you
that?
thought about talking?
Yeah. I'm gonna
Our
check in with
neighbor
them.
happened to be close childhood friends with the Secret Service. That's how this happened.
Yeah, and so, you know, we're mainly known for, you know, protection, president, vice president, all that. But we have an investigative mission, too, really, really important to us. And a large part of that is, cyber crimes, protecting children. A lot of our agents are in ICAC task forces. I don't know if you've heard of those, but it's Internet Crimes Against Children. There's one here in Mississippi. All throughout, local agencies are involved, federal agencies are involved. Taylor and I were talking earlier about Guy Collins. He's been involved in that, who's a tremendous investigator. So there's resources available. You just have to let us know. The Secret Service also partners with NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Go to their website. There is so much information on their website, so many different programs. There's a new program now called Take It Down. If your child or somebody underage that you know of thinks there's pictures of them out there, you can contact NCMEC, and they have the resources to scour the internet and find those pics, and they can get it taken down quickly.
Wow, I didn't even know that existed.
It does, yes.
pretty
So that's a
amazing.
pretty new program. So we partner with them. We also do the Safe School initiatives with school shootings and all that. We analyze them. We'll come out to the schools and help anyone with security plans. So there's a lot of resources available.
I just wanted to say, if you have a child that has a device that is internet enabled, please ask them if this has ever happened to them, because the majority of the kids that I see, that has happened to them and they've never told anyone. And so I bet that number is twice as many as what is reported, because kids feel shame about it and they know that that's not, once it gets to that point, they shouldn't have engaged in that. And it happens on, Fortnite and Roblox and all these other platforms too, anywhere that they can engage with other people. But if you have a kid who has that access, ask them about it and see, if they want to talk about it, because I think that a lot of kids don't talk to their parents about it.
And that's a great point, because the embarrassment, no kid wants to come tell you what's happened. But if you have that relationship with your child and they do come talk to you, be there for them. If you come down hard on them, they're never going to tell you again. So it's got to be a partnership.
Let me say this, is that, parents have a tremendous responsibility across the board on 100,000 different things and all. And this is, just, as we're learning, and as we have all seen in the last few months or so as we study this more closely, that's really what, and not to be overly self-serving, but that's what's so important about our Connect and Protect program, is that to make sure that there's the appropriate age level before you get any kind of device, and then whatever device it is with the appropriate amount of settings and all the software and all is set appropriately and according to age and what the parent decides it should be, not the child. And we have the opportunity to work with that. And quite frankly, our industry did not know this as we were rolling out these new technologies. The iPhone just rolled out in 2007, which was really the first true.
It's not that long
true
ago.
Smartphone. Doesn't seem that long to me. It might to others, but it
doesn't to
doesn't. It
me.
just seemed like 3 weeks ago to me. But there's just so many things that can be done, and you need to have assistance in providing the protection they need, not on making sure that the quality of the content is appropriate, and also the quantity as well.
Yeah. So real quick, I want to say something. So the great thing about C-Spire and this is that they are a small company. I mean, as far as like tech companies go, they are a family-owned company. It's you and it's their family.
We're small enough to compete, but I mean, we're large enough.
To compete,
but small enough to care.
To care, yes, that's the
the
greatest thing.
tagline. Write
and,
that down.
There was some, so C-Spire team, y'all need to write down what Hugh just said. That needs to be your new thing. But there was
They get tired listening to me.
there was a family here from South Carolina earlier that we got to talk with, and I don't know if there is something like that. And I know that C-Spire has a bigger reach than they did when we were in college, but that's the great thing here, and kind of what we wanted to show here is that there is more than just you as an individual family trying to figure it out. There are psychiatrists, there are tech companies, there are law enforcement, and there are other families who are trying to figure out how to get a handle on this.
What I like that they're doing, and what we want as a psychiatrist, what I want for kids when it comes to a technology pathway is a series of doors, not a wall. So if you see that there's a wall and you have to climb that wall to get off the other side, you have to fall, right, to get down. And so the door idea is what we want. So we go through this first door and we sort of, conquer this step of technology, and then the parents can unlock the next door, right? And then you go to the next door. And so that's where a program like that is really important for kids, because you make sure that they've sort of mastered what they need, that their brain is at an appropriate growth level, that they have the interpersonal skills that they need to move to the next level.
I think we want David to make a couple more points, and then we'll go to Q&A.
Yeah, look, I just want to say this is not something that's going away. It's not going to get easier for you because technology is constantly advancing. What we're already seeing now is the development of AI. So with AI now, one of the things we see, a recording of your voice, 3 seconds of it, they can make a whole conversation using your voice. And this has happened in Mississippi too. So bad guys are taking voice recordings they're getting off the internet, contacting the parents of these children, and making it sound like their daughter or their son, telling them, I've been kidnapped, they have me, if you don't send the money, they're going to kill me. So most of these, the ones that have happened in Mississippi, the kids were in college, mother's freaking out, fathers, they're starting to call the school. Ultimately, they find out the kid was in the school, no money got paid then, but it very easily can happen. You can see how AI is going to change a lot of things.
But I will say this, David, AI can be used to thwart that as well.
Absolutely.
It'll take AI to do it.
Sure. AI, look, that's what I'm saying. Technology is a great thing, but it can also be a dangerous thing.
No question.
You just have to be careful.
Right. Yeah. You
The other thing with AI, so children are already interacting with AI platforms. They don't know it a lot of times. The parents don't know it. But what AI is also doing, a device that is using AI, that device learns. So the more that child interacts with it, the more it learns about that child. So another dangerous thing that is a possibility, at some point, AI learns so much about this child, they start putting the children in buckets. Okay, well I can't see this child going to college, is what the device is learning. And that's where they're putting them. So now they're making the decisions of what's going to happen to your child instead of you. So it's something that, it's the future's now. It's already here. So, you just want to get on top of it. And look, kids are smart. So if you think you know everything your kid's doing on social media and all that, you may just want to check again because, they're like, I see their Instagram. I know what's on there. I approve of everything. Well, you see their Instagram. Have you ever seen their Finstagram? Y'all know what Finstagram is? That's their fake Instagram.
Fake Instagram.
That's the one you're not going to see, but that's where all the stuff's at they don't want you to see.
I think that's good summary of parenting advice. Check again.
Right.
I think that's good. Well,
How many times were we doing things that our parents didn't know about?
We have some parents in the audience right now, so we may not should answer that question.
Next.
Have y'all heard about grandparent scamming where somebody calls, they look up somebody's information online, they call and pretend like they're their grandchild?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody called my grandfather, he's passed away now, CB, and said, this is your grandson Brady, and I hit somebody, I'd been drinking just one beer, and if they told me if I give them some money, it'll all go away, but I just need you to send me some money. And he hung up the phone, and my grandmother said, was that Brady? And he said, I don't think so, but if he did that, he just needs to go to jail anyway.
Old
Didn't
school
fall for
parents.
it. That's right.
He was old
school.
I like it.
There wasn't no.
Raising engaged
He
youth.
just needs to go on to jail.
All right.
So the last things I'll say is, look, I've worked this a long time and I've seen a lot. I see these crimes every day. This program, Osprey, this is the only thing that's going to work. I see all these campaigns come through and all that. You're like, that's great. It's almost like a pep rally, but then that's the end of it. Nothing else happens. This is a real movement. If you get behind it and you participate and you do it, you're going to save children. So I, as an agent with the U.S. Secret Service, I'm very, very proud to be involved in it. And the Secret Service as a whole is very proud to be involved. So I'm looking forward to see what the future brings with that. But this is NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, www.missingkids.org. Really, go there and just look. You'll get lost for hours in there. You're talking about social media addiction, all the different stuff. You're going to see everything, and it's going to be a lot of useful information, a lot of good information that I think you can use. That's our website. We have field offices in every state, all over the world. So if you need help, give your local office a call, and they'll get you in the right place.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dave. Let's get a round of applause. for David Polson. Okay. All right. If anyone has a question, we have microphones here on the right and a microphone on the left. If you
We
would
may
go
be
ahead
able to hear them.
and line up, do what?
So we may be able to hear them.
Might be able to hear if you want to just holler it out. But you can get behind a microphone if you have a question, at least give us an order as to who we could call on. And so we encourage you to have a question, please get up and get ready. While you're doing that, we have a few people that we want to thank. So none of this would be possible without the people who have been willing to make a contribution. So I'm going to go down the list here. First one is Adams and Reese Law Firm to help them with the nonprofit element. In the crowd tonight is Alec Taylor. Thank you so much, Adams and Reese and Alec Taylor. Lawton Marketing Group. These people here from Lawton, Oklahoma, Kelly and Kobe Edwards, they came from Alaska. They were on their anniversary trip. They came all the way here to be with us tonight. They built the website, and it turned out absolutely wonderful. We're so grateful for y'all's help. Cade Smith and Castell Sweet, the Center for Community Engagement here at Ole Miss, helped us put this thing on. Thank y'all so much. Obviously, C-Spire, we're really appreciative of your support and your team's engagement on this. Kirk Purdom, the Inn at Ole Miss, Jenny Chavis, Casey Klingon, and Brooke Davis Jeffcoat. Thank y'all all so much.
Thank y'all.
Yes. Okay, here we go. First question right over here. Thank you. Speak up.
Yeah, we heard about the social media being sort of interactive screen use, right? But I wondered for Dr. Stacey if sort of these negative neuroplasticity, brain effects, do you see that in screen time that's not interactive, like just watching a show, watching a movie? Is that kind of something that we should also, how can we consider that as well?
That's the second most common question I get. The first most common question is, shouldn't I let my kid use that in my house while they're there? And we can talk about that if you're interested. But that is a great question. So there's a difference between different kinds of screen use. So we have active use and we have passive use. And so passive use is when there's some sort of distance between you and the device. So that would be television. Now, am I saying that you can go let your kid watch television for 14 hours a day? Absolutely not. We know that again, is taking the place of other things that they should be doing. But when we talk about television, we have to put it in different categories. And so when I was a kid and you wanted to watch TV, it was the Brady Bunch at 3:35. Why 3:35? Nobody knows. But and then it went off, and that was it. Now TV now it's not like that. You watch TV and it's Bluey or I don't know, these Disney shows my kids
But
watch.
can't you just say Bluey's fine all the time?
Well,
can we just have Bluey at least all the time?
or Peppa. I love Peppa.
No.
My kids
They
started
talk so
saying,
bad about the dad.
I know, but my
They're
kids
like-
started saying
they're like, "Daddy-
strawberries,
Daddy
and it was
Pig
so
is
cute.
dumb."
Strawberries.
So
Daddy
strawberries.
Pig ruined the garden.
Right, yeah. Put on your sun cream and your swim dress. But
we
point
need to
being,
protect some adults.
Yeah, we do. Ooh. Point being, if your kid is watching like Netflix or continuous TV, that's one thing. But if it's one show or two shows and you set a time limit, that's much less, quote, dangerous, if you want to use that word, for the brain than this active screen time, which is a device that's close to them and in their hand. And so we say the bigger the screen, the less the problem. And we see that with pornography, and we see that with addictions to screens, pretty much across the board. So does that answer your question? Yes. Okay, good.
Thank you very much. Okay, next question right over here.
My name's Kyler. I also agree Peppa Pig is terrible.
Thank you.
This better not be
For the
about
same
Eagle
reason.
or Falcon.
Thank you.
So, first of all, this is a very low microphone. I hope everybody sees that.
Thank you so much, sir. Great question.
Thank you. I wanted to say, the way my brain works, I tend to think of things in like levels of difficulty. And I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And when I think about this approach and having, I'll use the word luxury of keeping this from them for a period of time, that seems much easier than reverting older kids that have already been exposed or have experience or even long-term profiles.
Yes, exactly.
So this is not a question for me. This is more of a question for people with older kids that have social media already. Maybe it's a great question for Dr. Stacey, but how do we reverse a lot of this, and what's an effective way to pull back on the reins without being hated parents?
That is a great question. We were talking about that at lunch today because, of course, it's always easier to never start an addiction than to treat it or to stop it once it happened. And we see that with, name anything. And so, of course, that's why I had told Erin that this whole idea sort of brought tears to my eyes because I was like, this is what we need to do, right, to prevent it. But the majority of American kids are already in that boat, right? They already have a device in their, maybe not on social media, but they have it in their hand all the time. And so there are options. So one option is you just take it away. Right? And so you sit the kids down, and this is where you have the family culture conversation, and you say, this is what our family's going to do. Like I give the example in our home, I have a child that has celiac disease, and so she can't have wheat, rye, and barley. And so in our home, we can't have those food items, which if you like bread, that sucks, right? Because bread and olive oil will get you. But that's our family culture. Like, we can't have that in our home. And so that's where you have to sit your kids down and you have to say, this is our family culture now, we're changing it. And they'll be real mad. They're going to be real mad at you. But that's where something like Connect and Protect comes in, because you can replace their device with something that has utility, that's a tool but not a toy. And so they're going to be mad about that. But also as a parent, you have to be ready. You got to get your boots on, and you got to be ready to step up your parenting game a little bit. So you've got to be ready to, has anyone ever played Telestrations? It's a game. If you haven't, order it now on Amazon, Target, whatever. It's so hilarious. You've got to be ready to spend some time with your kids that you hadn't been spending, right? And that sounds like an easy thing, and it's no judgment. It's just that we get used to letting the kids entertain themselves. And when you first pull that device away, you're going to have to spend some time doing some things, whether that's starting a garden or going on family bike rides, or my husband likes to spend a lot of time really encouraging my 13-year-old son to go to the gym with him, which he wants to go to the gym, just not with his dad. And so that's a talk you have to have with yourself about as a parent, like, okay, I need to really get myself ready for this. And then over time it gets easier because your family culture changes. It's sort of like how a lot of families, when their kids are little, they eat dinner a certain way. Like maybe the kids eat the noodles all over their hair, and then the parents sit down after the kids go to bed and eat. And then when they get a little bit older, they all sit down together, and then they're teenagers and they're eating dinner at 9:30 by the time they get home. But it's a family culture change. And so that you really have to be ready for that. And the kids will be mad.
The wonderful thing about Osprey is the whole point of it is to start from the place of least resistance. Our kids don't even know what it is. And maybe they just won't be curious if we have enough friends who also just don't. What is that stick with the smoke? That's where we've got to get our kids thinking about social media use. It's a thing people used to do all the time.
You'll learn about it when you're older. But real quick, C-Spire team. So 2 things we need to remember. We're small enough.
Big enough. Large enough to compete, small enough
Large
to care.
enough to compete, small enough to care. And then for the Connect and Protect slogan, we need to
Tools,
remember.
not toys.
Tools, not toys.
Boom.
There you go.
Thank you for your question. Okay, we have another question over here.
Kind of in a similar way. So we're Osprey. We're an Osprey family. I have a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So our children go to a wonderful Christian school. Technology is not really pushed socially like it is in a lot of bigger schools. And so I feel like we've been really protected in that way. So I've had the support in that way with regard to like our nest. But now that she's 13 and, dance team and softball and tennis, all the activities where there's other schools, there's phones everywhere. And I'm seeing our nest like slowly drop off. What's your recommendation on like rebuilding that nest at a later age, or like pulling in some new people into the nest?
What?
The signature
The signature.
on the website.
Oh, I don't know what you mean.
The pledge.
The pledge.
The
The
pledge.
Thank you. That's the word I couldn't remember. It reminds with
So
Sledge.
fly with us.
Yeah,
Fly
fly
is
with
what
us.
that page says. I don't know the answer to that. In our nest, our 10-year-olds are the oldest, and what we have, even those of us with kids who are 2 and 5, were a part of the conversation. What are the 10-year-olds going to do? I don't know. I think it's got to be. I can tell you this: the best thing that the best advice people always ask, what is your advice for a happy marriage? You and Ben are together all the time. How do you make it work? Communication. Over communication with your nest is the only way that I see it working. Maybe we're just oversharers. I know we are oversharers. Gosh, Mallory should have just been sitting up here with me. We discuss everything that happens in our entire day in a group text. Our best friends, Allie, Mallory, Emily, me, and
Jim and Josh and I don't talk because we know that our wives are going to tell
We
each
know
other
everything.
what we're doing, and then they're going to tell them.
They carry the message, and then you end up.
Aaron's going to tell Mallory something.
So
that-
what I'm saying is, are there any 13-year-old mothers out there that have
I have
13-year-old
two.
girls?
I get to have two.
Can you join my nest?
Again, not recommended. But what I can say about that is you have to really, you have to be confident in your parenting decision to talk to the other parents about that. And when you have a kid who's on a sports team, for example, and they say, well, we're going to communicate about the sports team on a group text and we want that to be the kid, you have to be confident enough as a parent, just like you would if they were serving Jell-O shots at lunch in 8th grade. And you would go
no,
to
we're
that.
not doing that.
That's right.
I don't know
and
what
you
to
go
say.
to that coach and you say, I totally get what you're trying to do. I love that you're putting responsibility on the kids, and I'm all for that. At this point, we don't allow that in our home, so I'm going to need you to either add me to the group text or send me a text separately if that's your platform.
Show them the black lung.
Yes.
Or
So that's the other piece is
put
the
that on the
education
site.
piece. And so that's why I do love the Screen Strong program, because you can share, you can ask other parents that are in your quote nest, even the ones that have already sort of fallen out a little bit, to do that with you and say, let's do this and learn more about this and figure out what we're going to do. Because I think education is really what's going to get you to the finish line.
And I would just say thank you for being a leader wherever you are.
You're doing it.
Yeah, let's get a round of applause for her.
You're doing it, Mama.
Yeah. And we hope that this is going to help it be a lot easier for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're going to take one more question, and then Erin is going to close us. Is there another question over here?
over here.
It's our South Carolina friend.
It
Hello.
is, hi. So I just kind of wanted to speak to, I have a nephew who has executive functioning disorder, and he also has, sensory processing disorder. And so he goes to therapy and different things for that. But a lot of times, I find also just in other friend groups that I've had that they are being encouraged to use, technology or devices or things like that as a therapy. How does that affect, can you speak to that a little bit? I guess
I
I'm just trying
absolutely
to...
disagree with that. Yeah,
Okay.
I absolutely disagree with that. There is a FDA-approved game that's a treatment for ADHD. How that got FDA approval is probably a story on its own, but I don't recommend it. I don't think that it's helpful. I think that it's sort of like if someone's an alcoholic and you say, well, to keep them out of withdrawal, we're just going to give them 2 beers a day, and that'll be okay, right? Well, yeah, they won't go into withdrawal, but you're perpetuating the problem, right? And so I don't agree with it. Now, I don't know the particular kid and the situation, but I think that becomes sort of an easy way to sort of handle some of that discomfort that comes with some of those struggles. But I don't think it's the right way forward. Yeah.
All right. Well, we thank you all so much. And just like this started, we want to make sure that we end it strong. So, Erin, final word, please.
Okay. You guys just don't have some confidence, okay? This is the right way forward. I think we all know that. And I think that, the day I mentioned it for the first time, a vague little video that I put on Instagram for parents who want to raise their kids social media free, 20,000 people signed up that day. Since then, we're getting close to 30,000 now. There are 30,000 of us. How many kids does that amount to?
30,000 families.
30,000 families. There are going to be people who say that we're naive and that this is a silly thing we're trying to do. You can't stop progress. We're not trying to stop progress. We're trying to change it. And I think the ones who say it can't be done need to get out of the way of the ones who are going to actually do it. So thank you guys so much for being here tonight and for doing it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Thank y'all.
That was great. Well, we really appreciate y'all being here tonight. We're going to put on some more 90s music, and y'all can go home. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you so
Drive
much.
safe.
did good.
Yeah, that was good.
Thank you, Eric. That was so good.
I'm the judge.